Hello and welcome. In this tutorial, I will illustrate how you can create summary statistics tables in the KIWI ExploreLive module. I will illustrate the use of basic settings, such as the selection of the data source, the selection of the variables that will be summarized in your table, the selection of the statistics that will be reported. I will also cover some advanced settings, and I will conclude with a demonstration of how you can export the tables that will be generated within the submodule. I have an active session of ExploreLive in which I've already imported a dataset. This is the same simulated pharmacokinetic dataset that we've used in other tutorials. I've used this dataset to create a modified version in which the data is filtered to the first record per subject. The idea is that I want to summarize the distribution of my variables by just using one record per subject, because I believe in this data every variables or co-variables were pretty much time invariant. To create the summary statistics table, you need to click on the table menu and click the summary statistics option. The interface is divided into two panels. At the beginning, you can see a data settings panel where you can select the information related to the data. The second panel is the summary statistics settings, relates to the selection of statistics and the design of the table. So we will go over all those settings one by one, starting with the selection of the data source in the first field. This is a drop-down listing all the data sets that you would have imported, all the modified data sets that you would have created, and the pool data if you have merged or pooled two data sets together. I will select the one per ID data set. To create a table, you need to provide the list of variables that you want to summarize. This is something that you will do in this field here. And you also need to define which variable identify a subject. The reason is that the table will report the number of records used to calculate the statistics, and it will also identify the number of subjects. So if you have a data set with multiple records per subject, the number of records reported would be different than the number of subjects that would be reported. So I will include multiple variables. I'm not going to use too many variables. Let's use age and weight, and we will also include the dose variable, which we will actually transform from a continuous variable. This is a numerical variable in the dataset, so it will be considered as continuous. I want to make sure that my table will report that as a categorical variable. And I will also then add, going back to this field, this is the field that you can use to transform or coerce a continuous variable into categorical. So you can click and type as many variables as you want here, or as you need. Now coming back to my selections of variables, I will use sexfc. And then I will define my subject identification variable as the ID variable. As soon as I will confirm that selection, ExploreLive will start generating tables and report them at the bottom. So you can see a table that by default report statistics by row, with rows spanning multiple well, for each variable, you have multiple rows. So age, sexf, weight, and those. I'm not quite sure about the order though. Sorry about that. By default, the statistics for continuous variable are the following: mean, standard deviation, which are shown on the same line, median, mean and maximum value. So the median is here, the mean and max are shown on the same line, and n is the number of records. You can request the display of additional statistics like the geometric mean, percent CV of the geometric mean, percent CV is the coefficient of variation. You can also request a confidence interval. And for that, you need to display or select the confidence interval that you want to report. The default is 95% confidence interval. And this would be represented by the equivalent percentiles, so the 2.5 and 97.5 percentile for the 95% confidence interval. If you go to 90, this will update the percentiles. You can also request the number of subjects outside the confidence interval if you want. You can also control a number of additional design things in our options in this panel. You can control the overall design of the table, how the variables and the statistics are arranged. The first design allows you to display both continuous and categorical variable on the same table. Sorry, the last two columns only allow the use of continuous variables. The reason is because we're only displaying statistic for continuous variable. The second design is showing the variable by row and the statistics by columns. The last one basically flipped this design by showing the variables as columns and the statistics by rows. I will revert back to the very first design and talk about the possibility of stratifying the data. Group by is a field that will allow you to define one or more variables. I will use study C for now. This is going to break the statistics by study values and will also report an overall column. If you're using a stratification within a table using the group by, you can control how the percentage of records reported for categorical variables, how those percentage are calculated. By default, the percentage are calculated by column. So the sum of the percentage will equal 100 if you sum them up by column. You could flip that by row. In that case, the percentage sum up to 100 within a row. So it depends on how you want to look at those percentage, what makes sense in your evaluation. I'm just going to go back to percentage by column. As I said, you can define multiple stratification groups, and I'm just going to reuse the dose variable. And as you can see now, I have a header section that uses two stratification variable. The second variable is the one that will be shown as the second row, so the closest to your statistics. And then the first variable straddle all the possible doses inside that study value. In the second study, I only have one dose. The last study had multiple doses. So you have more columns in that case. Obviously, my dose variable here is not super useful to report here. I'm just going to remove that dose for now and illustrate the table by functionality. So it's similar to in terms of stratification to the paneling. So you will essentially create one table per panel by variable. So here I get a first table for my dose 10, and you can see this little additional panel here that report 8 possible, 8 total tables available. If you click on the little arrow, the table that is reported here is just updated to your selection. I'm going to remove that for now. I'm going to mention the possibility of subsetting the data within the summary statistics table. This is the same functionality that we have described for the plot submodules. It's literally the same options that you have access to here. So I will invite you to watch that separate tutorial video. It's entitled Data Subset or Subsetting Data. And you'll find more information about how to use these different fields to further subset your data within the summary statistics module. Before I conclude, I want to demonstrate the use of the download functionality. It's actually fairly simple. You have this download panel at the bottom of the submodule with a single field that will define the type of export or the format of the document you will export your table in. I'm going to select the default Word option. We'll click on the download button, and this will create a doc file. Going to save it here, and in Chrome I can click on the document to directly open it, and so it reports your table in a Word document that you can then process the way you need, including another document, or just discard in my case. So with that, this concludes the presentation of the summary statistics functionality in the ExploreLive module of KIWI. If you have questions about this functionality, we invite you to read the KIWI user manual. If you have further questions, please feel free to contact us at kiwisupport@cognigencorp.com. That's kiwisupport@cognigencorp.com. Thank you.